Yo, what is going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops, and today we are hopping right back into our top 50 list with a new player. Of course, this player today is Dominique Wilkins, as you might see in the thumbnail and also the title. But where do I have Dominique Wilkins ranked all time? Well, I have the human highlight reel ranked at number 39. Now, without further ado, before we get into this video, I'm going to need you guys to hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell, and spam up all those comments, good, or, if you disagree or anything like that. But without further ado, let's get into Dominique Wilkins. Now, over the course of his NBA career, Dominique was a 9-time NBA All-Star every year from 1986 until 1994. He also made 7 All-NBA teams. He made first-team All-NBA in 1986, second-team All-NBA 4 times in 1987, 1988, 1991, and 1993. And he made third-team All-NBA twice in 1989 and 1994. Now, in terms of his scoring championships, he does have one, which was in 1986, and he's actually one of only 8 players to average over 25 points per game for 10 consecutive seasons. The other players being Jerry West, Michael Jordan, Karl Malone, Shaquille O'Neal, Allen Iverson, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and then, of course, Dominique Wilkins. And it seems like he's just another victim of no help or poor management, which, if in a better situation, could have benefited his career. I mean, over the course of his NBA career, he only had 3 all-star teammates, which were players that were all-stars alongside him, which was Doc Rivers once, Kevin Willis once, and Moses Malone once near the end of his career. Just to put into perspective with other all-time great small forwards, Kevin Durant has had 15 total and actually had just as many as Dominique Wilkins in his first season with the Golden State Warriors. Whereas LeBron James has had 16 total and is sure to have more this coming season, both with AD and maybe Russell Westbrook. Scottie Pippen had 13 total. Now, granted, most of those are Michael Jordan, but even if you take away Michael Jordan, then it still comes out as more than the total for Dominique Wilkins. And then Larry Bird had 23 total. So as you can see, Dominique Wilkins' teammate success wasn't really on par with a lot of these other all-time greats. So maybe in a better situation, we could see a different outcome or a different ranking with his legacy. And now, as I mentioned, he was an elite scorer in his time. 24.8 points per game in the regular season ranks him 14th all-time, and his 25.4 points per game in the playoffs puts him 17th all-time. In terms of advanced stats, his 82.3 win shares puts him 42nd in NBA history, 117.5 offensive win shares puts him 52nd all-time, a 3.3 box plus minus puts him 54th all-time, and actually 4.3 offensive box plus minus puts him 21st all-time. Along with this, a 50.6 VORP rating, 34th all-time, and his 21.6 PER puts him 44th in NBA history. Now, in terms of his efficiency over the course of his career, it was roughly about 46, 32, 81 splits in the regular season, whereas it dropped to about 43, 28, 84 splits in the playoffs. So it might not seem that great, but then realized that his efficiency was still at league average over the course of his career, and the volume in which he did so, I think it defends the fact that he was a great scoring winning player. Now, in terms of his MVP shares, he received votes in 7 different seasons. He was a top 10 finisher 5 different times, a top 5 finisher 3 different times, and one time he was the runner-up in 1985-1986 to Larry Bird, who won the award. And actually, Dominique received 5 first-place votes after single-handedly turning the Hawks from a 9 seed to a 4 seed and a 16-game improvement from 34 wins to a 50-32 record. Now, in terms of his playoff career, in both the regular season and the postseason, Dominique Wilkins was never seen as a top-tier three-point shooter by any means. However, considering he was one of the best finishers in the league, as well as one of the most athletic players of all time, he was still able to create the same scoring output in the playoffs. He averaged 20 points per game or more in every playoff series with the Hawks outside of his first 2 series in his first 2 seasons. Of course, not only was that his first 2 years in the playoffs, but also in the NBA, in which a young player that was even traded by Utah on draft night, the team was still under the lead of guys like Dan Brownfield and Johnny Davis until the franchise officially gave the keys to Dominique Wilkins in his 3rd season. And that's why I'm kind of referring to all the series after his first 2 years. But in these 9 series throughout this stretch, he managed to average over 30 points per game in 5 of them, and over 6 rebounds per game in 6 of those 9 series, 5 rebounds per game or more in all 9. In fact, his 5th highest scoring playoff run ranks 229th all time. So even though this next part isn't going to be completely accurate, let's just assume the worst case scenario. This would mark him behind 45 players in NBA history of doing the same thing. So putting him on a top 50 list, I mean, let's think about it. And realize that players like MJ or Iverson or Kobe have done this on more than 5 occasions, so in reality, the amount of players in this class is even less. But one of these postseasons where Dominique Wilkins was on that list was in 1987-1988, where he led the playoffs in usage percentage with 35.8%, while averaging 31 points, 6.5 rebounds, about 3 assists, and just under 1.5 steals a game on a plus 3.2 box plus minus and 53% true shooting in this playoff run. After he disposed of the Bucks in a winner-go-home 33-point Game 5, in which was one of his 30-point per game series on quite possibly his best efficiency ever, he proceeded to play against the Boston Celtics, who had multiple all-star caliber players such as Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Danny Ainge, Dennis Johnson, and even a young rising star in Reggie Lewis. And Wilkins actually had the Atlanta Hawks up 3 games to 2 in this series before losing the last 2 games by 2 points each in both 6 and 7. While Dominique Wilkins averaged 41 points per game, 7.5 rebounds a game, 3.5 assists per game on 51% shooting from the field for both Game 6 and 7 together. This even included a 47-point Game 7. He even outplayed Larry Bird individually over these 2 games, but his team just wasn't quite on par with Boston, as expected. And if they were to advance into the next round, they would play Detroit, who they'd faced 6 times that season. Now 5 of which Wilkins played, the 1 he didn't, but in 3 of these games he actually scored over 30 points and he dropped 150 piece as well. Ironically though, it was the 2 games where Dominique Wilkins scored between 10 and 15 points against the Pistons where the Atlanta Hawks actually won. So maybe you could sit here and say that this pushes a narrative that Wilkins was a ball hog and it hurt his team's success, but that narrative kind of turns to trash when you realize that Wilkins led the Hawks to the playoffs for 6 of 7 years as the lead guy and had multiple years past the first round, had 10 win shares in 7 of 8 seasons, with the only year where he didn't being the season that he missed half the games from his torn Achilles. And that's another thing that adds on to his career, is that his recovery from time away from basketball is some of the best that we've ever seen because he's a natural basketball player. He averaged 30 points per game in both the regular season and playoffs following his Achilles injury, playing better than any other player ever has off that injury besides maybe Kevin Durant. And then the next year when Atlanta traded him for Danny Manning, they were the first seed, and a big reason why they were upset in the second round, much like when Danny Granger was traded from those 2014 Pacers, and it kind of ruined the engine of that team. This is because for several years, Dominique Wilkins was the engine of that team, of those Atlanta Hawks for nearly a decade's worth of time. This is still the only time ever in NBA history where a 1-seeded All-Star break traded their leading scorer at the trade deadline, which again points fingers at management. Especially since the big prize that they were trying to get, which was Danny Manning, ended up leaving them in the offseason anyways. So it's like you traded your franchise player for several years, almost a decade's worth of time, for a guy that was only a few-month rental. That's pretty bad. And you might say maybe they're trying to start a rebuild or something, but no, they really weren't. I mean, they still had Mookie Blaylock, Steve Smith, Christian Laettner, and they had multiple seasons where they were in the playoffs following this trade, so it really didn't make much sense in my opinion. And after leaving to play overseas and return to the NBA, no other player has as great of an NBA comeback after the step away, except for maybe Michael Jordan. So for Dominique Wilkins, I would say that he is pretty underrated, because you need context to define his career since the front office failed him. He never had substantial help. Just imagine if all those years in Boston, if he had Kevin McHale or he had Robert Parrish, while maybe Larry Bird was stuck with Doc Rivers or Kevin Willis. Their legacies would likely be much different, and that's not to bring down Larry Bird, but rather to uplift Dominique Wilkins. Give him some real support, and his career plays out with arguably the biggest legacy leap in NBA history. And with that in mind, and what he did accomplish as an elite scorer, his athletic ability and underrated versatility, I think the 39 is a good spot for him. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about Dominique Wilkins. Back in the past, I did make a video on him being the most underrated NBA player. I think I might have been a little over my head on that one because maybe he isn't quite on that level. However, I did make some really good points, I think, in that video that could even add to his case for this spot at number 39. So be sure to check that out. I'll even leave the link for it in the description below. But regardless, I think that he still is underrated by many people in NBA history. 39, I don't know if a lot of people have him there on their all-time list, but I think this is a good spot personally, so I'm going to put him there. But again, hope you guys enjoy. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, and that's going to do it for me. So I'm out. Peace.